My parents handed me a Christmas gift with matching smiles. Inside, I found a flimsy paperback. The title, How to Grow Up. Across the room, my older sister was unwrapping first-class plane tickets to Barcelona. She gasped. They beamed. I smiled. And in that exact moment, something in me shattered, quietly. Not loud, not dramatic, just a clean, quiet crack. You'd expect me to storm out, right, or cry, yell, throw the book back at them. No. I took a sip of lukewarm cocoa and smiled again. The kind of smile you make when you're trying not to choke on 20 years of being the family afterthought. They thought that book would fix me, but they had no idea what they just started. Hi, I'm Emma Langley, and I'm 31 years old. I live in a one-bedroom apartment above a nail salon in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm a preschool teacher. I used to work children's parties on weekends, glitter, balloon animals. Now, I barely have time because I've become something else to my family. Their free babysitter, their emergency contact, their punching bag in soft pastels. But what they don't know is that little book. It did help me grow up, just not in the way they expected. Before I take you through what happened, and trust me, it gets worse. Go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments if you've ever gotten a gift so insulting it actually changed your life. You might be surprised how many of us are walking around with glitter in our lungs and a smile on our face, pretending it doesn't hurt. Let me take you back to where this all began. It wasn't just the book. It was a pattern. And patterns, they don't break until someone is brave enough to snap the thread. Because this isn't about one gift or one holiday. This is about the story I was born into and the role I was never allowed to rewrite. Until I finally did. I wish I could tell you that moment with the book was a one-off mistake, that maybe my parents just didn't think it through. But the truth is that Christmas wasn't the exception. It was the rule. Growing up, I was always the nice one, the helper, the cheerful kid who made messes easier and rooms warmer, the one who cleaned up after the party, remembered birthdays, smiled in photos even when her eyes were puffy. My sister, Amelia, on the other hand, was the gifted one. She always knew how to shine. She started a LinkedIn profile at 16, practiced her model UN speeches in the mirror. She once won a regional essay contest writing about urban policy in Rwanda. She didn't even care about Rwanda. She just knew how to win. And my parents, they adored her precision, her structure, her ability to look polished and speak in bullet points. Me, I was the glitter, the mess, the kid who once said I wanted to be a fairy when I grew up and meant it. They laughed. I remember my dad dropping his fork from laughing so hard. My mom just smiled and said, "She'll change her mind." But I never did. That dream didn't vanish. It just evolved. The wings became puppets. The magic became story time. Sparkly tutus. And messy art projects that lit up little kids' faces like Christmas trees. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. It was mine. I work full-time at a preschool in the city. It's loud. It's sticky. It's beautifully chaotic. I comfort kids when they cry because someone stole their blue crayon. I referee snack disputes and glitter glue emergencies. And unlike my family, those kids never pretend to be something they're not. On weekends, I used to run children's birthday parties, full-on fairy magic, puppet shows, balloon animals, even glitter tattoos. It wasn't just a job. It was joy. Until Amelia had Elodie. Now, don't get me wrong, I adore that child. She's 5 now, and she's convinced she's part unicorn. She calls me her fairy auntie, and I let her. Because when she wraps her tiny arms around me and laughs with her whole body, I feel something close to whole. But loving her doesn't mean I agreed to raise her. When Amelia gave birth, everything shifted. At first it was small favors. Just an hour while I run errands. Just this Saturday, so Marcus and I can go out. Then it was, we haven't had a break in forever. Then it wasn't requests anymore. It was expectation. Every weekend. I was there. Every family dinner. I left early to put Elodie to bed. I missed birthday parties for my preschool kids. I stopped dating. I stopped taking party gigs. My weekends weren't mine anymore. And the worst part? I let it happen. Because that's what good daughters do. Right. They help. They show up. They become invisible, so everyone else can shine. And my parents, they didn't just condone it, they celebrated it. My mom would say things like, "It takes a village, and you've always been so good at being there for family." My dad would joke, "Emma's got the patience of a saint. We should all be so lucky." But when it came time to celebrate me, to acknowledge my life, my job, my heart, crickets. Or worse, sarcasm disguised as compliments. Last year, for Christmas, Amelia got a brand new MacBook for her grad school work. I got a laminated to-do list to reorganize my parents' garage, written in Comic Sans. They didn't even wrap it. So this year, when I unwrapped a self-help book titled How to Grow Up, and Amelia unwrapped business class flights to Europe, I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. I smiled. Because smiling is what I do when I want to scream. I looked at the cartoon woman on the cover of the book, clutching a juice box and a glitter wand while bills flew around her head, and I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was exactly how they saw me. Someone stuck in childhood. Someone who hadn't moved on. Someone who needed fixing. But they had no idea who they were talking to. No idea that behind the wings and the fairy dust, I had something they'd never taught me to use. Boundaries. Because that night, lying awake in my tiny rented room above the nail salon, I decided something. If they really wanted me to grow up, then fine. Let's grow up. On my terms. The night after Christmas, I lay on my back in the tiny apartment I called home. The ceiling fan hummed softly, spinning above my head, dust clinging to the edges, like the silence clinging to my throat. My phone buzzed with messages, family group chats filled with photos of Amelia holding her tickets. My parents raving about how proud they were. Not a word about my book. Not even a "hope you enjoy it." I kept rereading the subtitle. Stop being a toddler in an adult body. I wish I could say it was the worst thing they'd ever done. But the truth, it was just louder than usual. That night, I got up, brushed glitter off the floor, some leftover from Elodie's craft project the weekend before, and sat down at my little fold-out desk. I opened a blank message. With shaking fingers but a calm heart, I started typing. Not a rant. Not an explosion. Just clarity. I messaged Amelia first. I let her know that starting next year, I'd be stepping back from regular babysitting. That I loved Elodie. Truly. But I couldn't keep sacrificing every weekend. I needed time to rebuild my own life. And I told her, gently but firmly, that I would no longer be helping with her tuition or travel expenses. Not because I didn't believe in her, but because I had my own future to plan. Then I wrote a second message to my parents. I thanked them for the book, told them it really made me think, and I left it at that. No sarcasm, no guilt, just a new boundary drawn. Quietly, but in ink. By morning, I had 6 missed calls, 2 voicemails, and a group text from my mom. We're just surprised. This feels out of character. Please reconsider. For the sake of the family, Out of character. You know, what else was out of character? Giving your daughter a passive-aggressive self-help book and expecting her to just keep saying thank you with a smile. But of course, I was the problem. I didn't respond. I had work. 25 preschoolers who saw me as a whole person, not as a utility. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a choice. I was growing up, not the way they wanted me to, but in a way that finally felt like mine. That week, I didn't babysit. I didn't offer. Didn't hint that I might be free. When Amelia texted, "Need to run errands. Can you take Elodie?" I replied, "Sorry. I've got plans." When she mentioned they had a dinner thing Friday night, I simply said, "Hope it's amazing. Maybe next time." She didn't reply. Then came the financial silence. No more Venmo transfers. No reminders. Just stopped. On Thursday, my phone buzzed again. This time from Dad. "Emma, we're concerned. This distance is worrying. Amelia's under so much stress." Stress. Right. Because apparently raising your own child counts as a crisis now. I wasn't withdrawing. I was reclaiming. I'd spent years pouring into everyone else's life like it was my job, my joy, my duty. But somewhere in the cracks of that pressure, my own joy had started leaking out. And in this new silence, I could actually hear myself again. I laughed more at work. Not the polite, cover-it-up kind of laugh. Real, belly-deep laughter. Like when one of my coworkers spilled juice on her pants and turned it into a full-on water safety demonstration. Or when a student whispered, "I love you more than jelly beans, but not more than outer space." That kind of joy doesn't come from always saying yes. It comes from choosing when to say no. But of course, the peace didn't last. The first wave of guilt came disguised as a question. "Mom, are you available this weekend to watch Elodie? Amelia and Marcus have plans." Me. "Sorry. I've got plans." Amelia. "Plans. Or one of your fairy parties." Me. "Neither. Just unavailable." Dad. "That's disappointing. We were really relying on you." There it was again. I wasn't a person. I was a utility. A built-in babysitter. A warm body they could plug into their plans. That weekend, I went to the zoo. Alone. I fed giraffes. Ate cotton candy that stuck to my fingers. Laughed when a toddler tossed his sneaker into the meerkat exhibit and shouted, "That's my offering." I didn't post about it. Didn't share. I kept it for myself. For once, no one asked me to explain how I spent my time. No one called me childish. No one handed me a baby and said, "Be a good girl and hold her for a second." It was quiet and beautiful and mine. But peace, like glitter, never stays where you put it. Monday morning, I walked into work to find 3 missed calls from Dad and a voicemail that started with, "We're deeply hurt." Always a promising opener. Apparently, Amelia had hired a teen babysitter for Saturday night. Someone with a fake resume and a nose ring who bailed last minute. Rather than cancel her cocktail mixer, she left Elodie with Marcus's cousin. Let's just say, Marcus's cousin is not exactly known for his attention to detail. He forgot to change Elodie's diaper for 5 hours. Taught her how to say, "Screw this." Let her eat whipped cream straight from the can. Naturally, my parents were horrified. But not at Amelia. At me. Mom said, "She doesn't need this kind of betrayal." Betrayal. Like I'd abandoned a kitten in the snow. Or leaked national secrets. I stared at my phone. Peeling a Paw Patrol sticker off my notebook. Breathing through my nose. Like I was 5 seconds from tears. Then came the message. "Amelia, we need to talk. Mom says you've been weird. Also, noticed my tuition deposit hasn't gone through." Are you behind? I texted back. I'm not behind. I just stopped. She called me immediately. You what? I stopped sending money. You can't just do that without warning. I'm in the middle of applying for this Geneva program. I'm not your sponsor. Amelia, I'm your sister. Silence. One blessed second. Then the sigh. The stupid book. This is about the stupid book. Isn't it? God, I wished it were that easy. No, I said. The book was just the final straw. This is about everything. She scoffed. Oh my God. You're being dramatic. There it was. The old voice. The one she used when we were kids, and I cried after she cut the head off my favorite stuffed unicorn. You're sensitive. Emotional. Grow up. And this time, I did. I said, you're not entitled to my money. And you're not entitled to my time. I love Elodie. But I'm not your nanny. She hung up. Honestly, felt like a win. But I should have known better. Amelia doesn't like losing. And my family. They don't like being told no. So, what came next? That was when the real game began. I thought that was it. I thought drawing the line, finally saying no, would bring some kind of peace, even if it meant losing my family's approval. But I was wrong. 2 days after Amelia hung up on me, my mom showed up. At work. Unannounced. I was still cleaning up after a glitter explosion in the craft corner. My pants sparkled. My shoes squished with spilled juice. And there she was, Linda Langley, my mother, in full suburban armor. Pressed coat, wool scarf, and those heels she always wears when she wants to look composed, but not confrontational. Can we talk? She asked, standing stiffly by the hallway wall like she didn't want to touch anything. I blinked. Right now. Just a moment. She smiled, but her eyes were sharp. It won't take long. I followed her out into the corridor. Still holding a glue stick, she glanced around like the crayon drawings taped to the walls offended her. Then she said, your sister is very upset. She says you're being cold. And I have to say, I agree. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not without blowing up. Not without crying. Not with a glue stick in my hand and 10 kids singing about weather inside the classroom behind me. She went on. I know you enjoy this environment. She gestured vaguely toward the children's artwork. But maybe it's time to think about the bigger picture. You're not a teenager anymore. And just like that, something inside me snapped. Not in a loud way. Not in a way she would notice. But in a still, solid way, like a door closing quietly. You know what's funny? I said, voice low. Every day, I teach my kids that their feelings matter, that they deserve respect, that it's okay to say no. She blinked. Of course. I really believe that, I added, even if I'm saying it while wearing glitter on my pants. Her mouth opened, but I didn't let her speak. I'm not being cold, I said. I'm being clear. She looked startled, as if clarity for me was somehow offensive. Then she said it. I just don't understand why you're abandoning your family. And I couldn't help it. I laughed. A short, sharp exhale. Oh, I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just stepping out of unpaid servitude. I turned and walked back into my classroom before she could reply. 'Cause it was snack time. And my kids didn't judge me for not buying plane tickets to Europe. The days that followed were quiet in a weird, loaded kind of way. No texts, no calls. Until Elodie's birthday. I didn't get an invite. I got a Facebook post. A picture of Elodie in a bouncy castle, holding a cake bigger than her face. Amelia and Marcus stood beside her, wearing coordinated pastel outfits like some kind of catalog ad. The caption read, some families are born, others show up. I wasn't tagged. Neither was anyone from my side of the family. I stared at the screen in silence. Sitting on my couch, a bowl of popcorn in my lap that I didn't even want. It wasn't just exclusion. It was a message. A perfectly filtered middle finger. But I didn't cry. I stood up, walked over to my closet, pulled out the plastic bins stacked high with costumes, glitter jars, hand puppets, pipe cleaners, sparkly paper crowns, and storybook backdrops. Then I sat down at my desk, opened my calendar, and made a few calls. I messaged a couple of parents from my preschool, called in a few favors from old party clients, booked the small community hall just outside the city, and I started planning a party. Not out of spite, not to win, but because I missed her. Because Elodie deserved to feel seen, to be loved for the way she twirls in her tutu and screams glitter, like it's a battle cry. So the next weekend, I threw her a party. Just me and her. No politics. No photographers. No pastel dress codes. Just magic. We made paper crowns, put on a puppet show, sprayed confetti everywhere. She hugged me so hard at the end, I almost fell over. "Best birthday ever," she whispered, and I didn't cry. I smiled and said, "That's what aunties are for. No strings, no guilt, just love." That should have been it. But of course, in my family, love is never allowed to exist without conditions. A few days later, Amelia got a voice note from Elodie. Just 10 seconds long. You could hear her little voice yell, "Fairy party. No boring party. No boring cake." And right at the end, you hear my laugh. Apparently, she'd been reenacting our party all week. Twirling in the tutu I gave her, waving her glitter wand, asking where the singing dragon went. Toddler honesty. Right. To me, it was adorable. To Amelia, it was treason. First, I got a text. "Amelia." She's confused. "Keep saying your party was the real one." Not helpful. Then another. "Mom, Elodie keeps asking for you. She's calling our party boring. This isn't okay." I ignored them. Until the next escalation. Someone, probably Amelia, called the preschool and asked if any children had ever been removed from class without authorization by a staff member. They were fishing. I sat in the break room, surrounded by paper snowflakes and juice boxes, trying not to cry. But I had proof. I pulled up the texts. "Me? Just confirming for Saturday. Same drop-off time as last year." "Amelia?" "Sure. Just keep it simple." "Me? Okay to use the community hall." "Amelia?" "Just send the address." All of it. In writing. I even had the party rental receipt. The RSVP. The drop-off message she sent. "We'll drop her around 11. Thanks again." So I wrote the email. Subject line. False inquiry. "Hi, Amelia. Since I'm now hearing that you're implying I took Elodie without permission, I've attached a full record of your written consent. If this continues, or if my workplace receives any further false inquiries, I will be consulting legal counsel. I love Elodie, but I will not tolerate being slandered for throwing her a party you didn't even want to attend." She didn't respond, but Mom did. This is family, not court. "You're being cold again. Please come talk this through." Cold. That was always the word. Not boundaried, not assertive, just cold. Because in our family, pain was a temperature issue. If I got quiet, I was icy. If I cried, I was too sensitive. If I said how I felt, I was overreacting. There was no version of me they could love without conditions. But Elodie, she still asked for me. Her daycare teacher texted me one morning. She tried to call you on a playphone. Said she's inviting you to her real party part 2. I smiled. Then I cried. not because it hurt, but because even at 5 years old, she understood what love was supposed to feel like. And I wasn't going to let them teach her otherwise. So I doubled down. On joy. On truth. On the kind of love they couldn't manipulate. And that's when everything really blew up. I didn't go nuclear. I didn't scream. Didn't post a rant. Didn't drag anyone online. But I did something worse. I got quiet. And I got intentional. Because when you grow up being the helper, the nice one, the invisible extra hands, choosing yourself feels like rebellion. So, I rebelled. That week, I poured every ounce of energy into something real. Something that filled me up instead of draining me. I booked 3 new party clients' parents who'd seen photos from Elodie's glitter-drenched birthday bash and asked, "Can you do one just like that?" They didn't say it with judgment. They said it with awe. One mom said, "We've had clowns and bounce houses, but this feels like actual joy." So I went all in. During the week, I worked with my preschoolers. On weekends, I brought joy to other kids' parties. And during the evenings, I finally allowed myself space to dream again. I updated my website, created a new pricing sheet, built a glitter inventory spreadsheet, ordered new costume pieces, and for the first time in a long time, I said no without guilt. When Amelia sent another message asking, "Are you around Saturday night? We've got another event," I replied, "Sorry, fully booked. Hope you two have fun." I didn't hear back. But then the real bomb dropped. Elodie showed up at daycare wearing her sparkly tutu, the one I gave her. She waved her glitter wand at the other kids, announcing, "I'm magic." My auntie gave me sparkle powers. It was cute. Innocent. Until she tried to leave one of my glitter stickers in her cubby and told her teacher, "It's for next time. My fairy auntie will come back." The teacher texted me, laughing. But Amelia wasn't laughing. That afternoon, my boss pulled me aside. "Hey, quick thing. We got a weird call. Someone asking if any of our teachers had ever removed a child from class without written consent." I stared at her. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it would knock glitter off the walls. But I stayed calm. I showed her the entire message thread with Amelia confirming the party drop-off, the time, the location, even the thank you text afterward. It was all there. I could see the relief on her face as she nodded. "You're good," she said. "Don't worry. But just so you know, someone's definitely trying to stir things up." That night, I made a folder on my laptop called Proof Just in Case. Inside, I stored screenshots, receipts, timestamps, everything. Because apparently, protecting yourself from your own family is something you might have to plan for. I also wrote another email to Amelia. Short, direct, unapologetic. "Hi, Amelia. I'm aware of the recent inquiry made to my workplace. I've included a record of your written consent regarding Elodie's party. If this behavior continues or escalates, I will be forced to seek legal counsel. I will not tolerate threats to my employment or reputation. Emma." Still, she didn't reply, but my mom did. "You're being dramatic. This is family, not court." That line again. Not court. As if protecting myself was a courtroom performance. As if their sabotage was just family dynamics. But I didn't respond, because I didn't need to. Instead, I doubled down on the one thing they could never control: my joy. That weekend, I threw another party. Not for Elodie. Not out of spite. Just because I could. I wore the giant purple wings, painted a dragon on my cheek, led a glittery conga line through a room full of shrieking kids and cake-sticky hands. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. No one there called it childish. No one smirked at my wand. They called it fun. They called it magic. They called me booked out for 2 months. But back at home, the group chat simmered. Amelia posted a photo of Elodie playing alone in the backyard with the caption, "Home is where the real family is." Then my parents posted a message about misguided family members who think children are trophies to be won. Still, I said nothing. Because when the truth is on your side, you don't have to scream it. You just have to live it. But I wasn't alone. The quiet began to shift. First, my Uncle Tom, the only family member who ever remembered my birthday without Facebook, called me. "I saw your mom's post," he said, "and I just want to say you matter more than they let on." Then my cousin Julie messaged me privately. "I saw Elodie's party pics. She looked so happy. You're amazing with her." And then, out of nowhere, I got a DM from someone I barely knew, one of Amelia's college friends. We'd met once, years ago. She wrote, "Hey, I know it's not my place, but the way they've been talking about you, it's not okay. If you ever need someone to back you up." It wasn't much, but it meant everything. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong. I wasn't being petty. I was just the first person to say, enough. And that terrified them. Because once someone breaks the pattern, others start to notice the pattern exists. So I kept going. I kept saying, I kept building my business. I kept making space for the version of me that had always been waiting underneath the helper costume. A version that didn't owe anyone her time, her money, or her silence. A version that finally saw herself as enough, even without their praise, even without their permission. And just when things felt calm, when I thought I'd reclaimed my peace, one message arrived that threatened to rip it all open again. But this time, I was ready. It started with a letter. A real one. Folded. Stamped. Addressed in Amelia's handwriting. No dramatic subject line. No emoji. Just my name on the front. Emma Langley. Inside was a short note. Maybe 8 sentences. I must have read it a dozen times before I believed it was real. She wrote, "I overreacted. I was scared. It hurt seeing Ellie so happy without me. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry. If you need space, I get it. But if you ever want to see her again, I hope you'll let me know." I didn't cry, but I did sit there with the letter resting on my lap for a while. Just breathing, letting it land. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't enough to erase the damage, but it was something. So I wrote back, not with anger, not with guilt, just truth. I love Elodie. I'll always be glad to see her. But I won't be part of a family dynamic where love is used like leverage. If we're going to rebuild anything, it has to start with honesty. I mailed it. She never responded. But 3 weeks later, I got a video. No caption. No text. Just a clip of Elodie, spinning in slow circles in the living room, wearing her glitter tutu. Her hair bounced with every turn, and sparkles floated through the air like stardust. At the end of the spin, she looked straight at the camera and waved. "I love my fairy auntie," she said. I smiled. Not the polite kind, the real kind. The kind that comes from knowing you've made it through something that tried to shrink you. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because that moment said everything. It's been 3 years since that winter. Elodie's 5 now. Chatty, loud, endlessly creative. Currently convinced she's half unicorn. Honestly, I'm not arguing. I see her often. Amelia and Marcus don't love it, but they tolerate it. Because Elodie asks for me, constantly. And even they can't deny that what she and I have is real. They need the break, and I need the joy. Amelia eventually finished her degree. It didn't come easy without my financial support. She had to cut back on travel, Say no to those unpaid networking retreats. And take out a loan. It was hard at first. Balancing coursework with parenting. No built-in babysitter. No unlimited funds. But she managed. She stumbled. Adjusted. Grew. In her own messy way. She's working now. It's not glamorous. Not international. Definitely not the kind of thing she used to brag about at holiday dinners. But it's hers. And she's making it work. Not from a pedestal, but from the ground, where the rest of us live. As for my parents, we keep things distant. A few texts here and there. Obligatory. They still don't really understand what happened. They think I overreacted. Blew things out of proportion. They've never apologized. Not truly. Instead, they send messages like, "Your sister's doing her best. We all miss how things used to be. Let's not dwell on the past." But here's the thing. I don't miss how things used to be. Not even a little. Because how things used to be meant silence. Me doing everything. Them pretending that my needs didn't matter. And now I have a life. A real one. One I built. Brick by brick. Out of boundaries and glitter and truth. I run a small business now, creative workshops for kids. There's a 2-month wait list for my birthday parties. Parents love them because I don't just entertain. I make kids feel seen. I get invited to speak at early childhood education events. Sometimes I show up with paint in my hair. Once, a little boy called me the boss of joy. I even hired a part-time assistant. Her name is Bree. She's 19 and already better at balloon animals than I'll ever be. And I still wear sparkly wings. Still use silly voices. Still keep a glitter spreadsheet with color-coded categories. But now, no one calls it childish. They call it booked. They call it thriving. And sometimes, late at night, I ask myself, did I go too far? Should I have been softer? Should I have tried harder to explain? But then I remember how quiet it used to be in my apartment after those long weekends. The kind of quiet that didn't feel peaceful, but hollow. The kind of quiet that followed being used up and ignored. And I realize, maybe I didn't draw the line too early. Maybe I drew it too late. Because the truth is, growing up isn't about doing what others expect. It's about choosing yourself even if no one claps. And in the end, that choice, it changed everything. I used to think growing up meant becoming less of me. Less sparkly, less sensitive, less emotional, more serious, more structured, more like her. Amelia was everything they said success should look like. Polished, efficient, respected. She knew how to perform in the rooms that made our parents proud. And I used to think that made me wrong. I didn't have the degrees or the titles. I had glue on my hands and paint in my hair. I ran late because I stopped to help a crying kid tie their shoe. My inbox wasn't full of job offers. It was full of RSVP requests and glitter orders. For a long time, I let that comparison shrink me. But here's what I know now. You don't have to become someone else to be grown. You don't have to wear blazers and speak in spreadsheets. You don't have to trade wonder for practicality. You can grow up and still believe in magic. You can be soft and strong at the same time. You can build a business that runs on joy. You can say no and still be loving. You can walk away from people who only love you when you're useful and still be whole. The truth is, my family didn't want me to grow up. They wanted me to stay in my lane. Quiet. Cheerful. Available. They weren't scared of me being immature. They were scared of me getting free. Because once you stop playing the role they wrote for you, they have to deal with who you really are. And who I really am. I'm the woman who turns pipe cleaners into dragons. Who remembers every kid's favorite color? Who gets hugs with sticky fingers and thank you notes written in crayon? Who teaches kids that their voices matter, even if they're small? especially if they're small. And every time I throw a party, every time a kid screams in delight because the puppet talked back or the bubbles filled the room, I remember this matters. Even if it's not what the world calls success, even if no one ever puts it on a LinkedIn page, because for the first time in my life, I'm not living for applause I'll never get. I'm living for peace, for self-respect, for magic on my own terms. And maybe that's what growing up really means. Not becoming someone else, but finally becoming yourself, unapologetically. So now, when my niece looks at me with wide eyes and says, "Do you still have fairy dust in your pockets?" I smile and say, "Always." Because maybe the dust isn't the part I outgrew. Maybe it's the part I finally gave myself permission to keep. And if you're watching this, if you've ever been the one who stays quiet, the helper, the one who picks up the pieces while everyone else gets the credit, let me tell you something. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not dramatic for wanting respect. You are not wrong for wanting your time back. You are just done being invisible. And trust me, when you stop being useful and start being honest, they will notice. They might not like it, but they'll notice. And somewhere in the silence that follows, you'll finally hear the voice that matters most. Your own.